morning and welcome to the Nissan Leaf E+, a car that's got a much bigger battery than the 40 kilowatt hour one and some other subtle differences in and around it. But the question I want to answer today is this car actually worth the premium price that you have to pay over the 40 kilowatt hour Leaf? This video is sponsored by Just EVs, a family-run company with the largest selection of battery electric vehicles available with free UK delivery. They now also offer EV rentals. Have a look at justevs.co.uk and don't forget to mention EV Opinion for a free annual service. Now, before I start, if you're expecting a full review of a Nissan Leaf, this isn't the video for you. This video is only looking at the subtle differences between this and the 40 kilowatt hour one. If you want to see a full review, I've done a couple on the 40 kilowatt hour Leaf. I'll put a link above now so you can go and have a look at that. Let's stick to where those subtle differences are and whether it actually makes this a better car for the money. And outside, what you'll see is absolutely no difference whatsoever, other than a couple of little things at the front. And the things that you'll notice here are, number one, a little bit of blue trim. That's the only difference. And number two, if I open the charge flap, in here you'll see a little E+ badge on the CHAdeMO charger. That's where the differences end outside here. And inside, it's exactly the same story. On first glance, it looks identical to the 40. Couple of subtle differences that I will mention. The screen is up from 7 inches to 8 inches and it's been redesigned. Now it looks much the same with the logos and the icons that are on the screen, but the screen is much better now. It's quicker to respond. I'm not going to say it's bang up to date and it does everything brilliantly and it's beautiful to look at. It's not. It's just a step forward on what they had before. It feels a bit better. It is better, but it's not brilliant. Otherwise, in here, you look around, it is identical. When we talk about the battery, and that is the key to this, that's where all your money's going to go. The battery is a 62 kilowatt hour battery. Actually, it's about 56 kilowatt hours that are usable. And the battery itself is more or less the same size as the 40 kilowatt hour one. But they've realigned and redesigned the cells so that they sit in a different way. And you'll see that the battery pack itself, it's a slightly different shape. And what that means is it sits a little higher, it's a little deeper in the way it's designed. And that means that the car itself is 5mm higher than the 40 kilowatt hour one. You wouldn't notice it to look at it, but that does mean it sits a bit higher. It means the battery and the weight of this car is about 90 kilograms more than the 40. What that means is because of the extra weight and because of the ride height, they've had to stiffen the springs a little bit just to make it a bit firmer to allow the car to drive properly without wallowing around. What that's also meant is because they've had to raise things and adjust bits and pieces, the boot is slightly smaller now. Not by a lot, again, you wouldn't notice it. It was 435 litres, it's now 420. Of course, having a bigger battery gives you more power to use and hopefully uprate the motor a little bit. So taking all of that into account and the fact that we've also got more power available to us now, let's see how it drives compared to the 40. Now, getting into this car, the first thing I expected was to feel an eagerness to go, a real drive to get moving because of that extra power that we've got. This motor is 215 horsepower. That's 66 more than you get in the 40 kilowatt hour one. Its 0 to 60 is 7.3 seconds as opposed to just under 8 in the 40. But I've got to be honest, I'm really not feeling it. It doesn't feel any different. Now, maybe if I had driven the 40 and then jumped straight into this, I would feel a bit of a difference. But I'm not feeling masses of difference. It's eager, it's keen to go, it's like any electric vehicle, don't get me wrong, but it's certainly not a sports car. It's not fast by any stretch of the imagination. This tops out under 100 miles an hour. With that extra weight of the battery and that extra high seating position and the stiffened springs, I was expecting to find in this car that it was a little bit wallowy and it was a little bit kind of rolling around in the corners. Because let's be honest, with that extra range, there's more chance that you're going to be doing longer mileages. You're going to be on the motorway, you're going to be on A roads. So you want it to feel safe and stable on those roads. Well, if you're within the speed limit, it certainly does. There's no problems whatsoever. I've been following cars along here at 55, 60 miles an hour on this twisty A road, and it's been perfectly stable and perfectly fine. I think if you pushed on and you started to break the speed limit, I do think you would find wanting in it. It does feel certainly as if you are sat up more, and it does feel as if there is an amount of roll that you don't get in the 40, and you certainly don't get in some of the other electric cars I've driven recently. But stick within the speed limits and you're going to be fine. This, after all, is a comfortable family car that you want to feel safe and secure in, and it ticks both of those boxes without a doubt. And range-wise, well, you can expect to see over 200 miles. I certainly don't think you're going to see the 240, 250 that I hear quoted, unless you are really, really economical and the day is a perfect day. I think realistically you're going to get just over 200 miles, anything up to maybe 220, 230 if you're being a little bit more careful. And when you come to charge this car up, it does have a 100 kilowatt charger. So Nissan say this battery should charge in the same time it would take to charge the 40 kilowatt hour one. So that is an improvement, and you will get those extra miles if you find a suitable charger that will charge at that speed. But what you do have in here is a CHAdeMO charger. Now, up until this point, I've been all for CHAdeMO. I think it works. We haven't had any of the problems we've seen with some of the CCS chargers. They've just worked really, really well. But the EU now are getting behind CCS, and the new chargers we're seeing rolled out, they all have CCS. It does seem that apart from the vehicle to grid aspect of CHAdeMO, it's almost becoming the Betamax of chargers. CCS has got a vehicle to grid function coming, they're working on it. So if that all comes to fruition, I do wonder whether we've got much more of CHAdeMO left. Certainly Nissan are sticking with it. And of course, before I finish driving this, it would be amiss of me not to mention the cooling of the battery and the fact it's passive air cooling. We were expecting, first of all, for Nissan to change to LG cells, because well, that seemed to be where they were going. They were trying to offload their own battery making company, or the subsidiary of Nissan that makes the batteries. That didn't happen. We see that they're still using their own cells, they're still making their own. And then we heard that there wasn't going to be any active cooling, because again, it started life that they said, or the rumour had it, that there was going to be some sort of active liquid cooling within the battery. When they went back to their own cells, that downgraded, and it sounded like there was going to be some sort of air cooling, so very similar to what we see in the ENV200. Again, that was dropped, and here we are with just, well, the same as we've had in all the Nissan Leafs up till now. It's passive. Personally speaking, it doesn't bother me, because I don't do enough mileage to warrant rapid charging that many times in a day. But if you do, that could become a problem. It does seem better than it was. It does seem that there's been a bit of a software fix that has made it better. And I would say that for all the song and dance we had about the 40 kilowatt hour Leafs having these rapid gate issues, and we were all concerned about battery degradation, I'm not actually seeing masses of Nissan Leafs falling into disrepair or being sent to the scrap heap because their batteries have degraded that bad. They actually seem to be weathering pretty well. So it's not a concern for me. And it's not a concern that the battery is going to degrade. But what I would say is, if you are likely to be somebody who's doing 200 plus miles every single day, and you're rapid charging 2 or 3 times a day, then perhaps look elsewhere, because this will get very tiresome very quickly when those speeds start dropping off. So all in here, it's not actually much different from the 40. It feels the same. It drives more or less the same. The screen is definitely an improvement. But I'm struggling to actually find anything else to tell you about the inside of this car that's different from the 40. I guess after that, the question would be, would I buy one? And when you look at the complete package, yes, it's got some extra mileage in it. Yes, it's got a few little tweaks. It's a little bit quicker. It's got a bit more torque. Of course, these are positive things. But it's significantly more expensive than the 40 kilowatt hour one. And I suppose what it comes down to is, do I really need that extra range? And for me personally, no, the 40 kilowatt hour one would be more than sufficient for me. I have no issues with the battery. This whole rapid gate issue doesn't concern me, because I don't rapid charge that often and I don't do that amount of long journeys. So that's my personal opinion on it. But when you take it outside of comparing this to the 40 kilowatt hour Leaf, well, you've then got to start looking at things like the e-Niro and the Kona, because they're very similarly priced. And I've got to be honest, although maybe I don't like the interior in either of those enough to be dancing around and shouting that they're wonderful, they're probably a little bit more interesting than the Leaf. And I really do like the Leaf interior. but it's starting to look a little bit dated now. But the key for me with both of those cars, and if I was looking to buy a bigger battery because I wanted more range, is both of those cars go substantially further than this E+. So at the moment, yes, there's a waiting list, but if I was just comparing those three cars side by side, I'm afraid this would be at the bottom of the list. But that brings us full circle back to personal preference and what do you want? Because I personally don't really like SUVs or compact SUVs. I find them a little bit cumbersome and generally they're not as efficient, albeit the Kona and the e-Niro has shown us otherwise. I prefer a hatchback or a saloon car. I always have done. That's my personal choice. So that would swing me back towards this, but it takes me personally back to, if I was going to choose one of these, I would go for the 40 kilowatt hour Leaf and pocket myself in the region of £6,000 that I don't need to spend on the extra battery. But what do you think? How does this fit into your life? Would it fit into your life? Or would you like to look elsewhere? Because do you know what? We haven't even spoken about the Model 3, have we? With the Standard Range Plus, yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but not significantly. And I think that is a much, much nicer car. But we could compare all sorts of cars all day, couldn't we? Tell me what you think. Would you consider this over a 40 kilowatt hour Leaf? Is that extra money worth it to you? And well, what do you feel? Do you think Nissan have kind of had their day with the Leaf now and they really are starting to just fall behind, and it's about time they did something a little bit more extreme and perhaps introduced a new vehicle? Bear in mind there are rumours of a little SUV coming soon. What's your views? Let me know. Hopefully you've enjoyed that today. If you have, remember to like and share. If you're not doing so already, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at EVOpinion. Likewise, if you want to support the channel, have a look at the Patreon link and some of the other links where you can support me below. But until next time, thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. All the best.